Right, we are recording and we will get rolling here. So I'm gonna just jump right in. The first thing I do need to announce to everyone is I got an email from Greg Fagan this afternoon, resigning from the committee. He said that he's got a lot of family and work stuff on his plate and just is not able to continue with the commitment. So he was resigning immediately and just extended his apologies on the short notice around that, and that he's really enjoyed a lot of the conversations that we've had. And here's Christina, her in. So that means currently we have both now a resident and a business opening, just to put that out there. So if folks are thinking about that or thinking about folks that maybe might want to join us, that would be fantastic. And maybe at our next meeting, we can have a little bit of a brainstorming conversation around thoughts on who we might want to fill those. That also means that we don't have a clerk right now. So I'm gonna take the notes again tonight, like I did in our last meeting, so that we've got those down. But we'll need to think about how that's going to move forward, because although I love being really involved in this committee, I can't chair and take notes and follow up on things. So so realistically, we'll need somebody to try and step into that role in the future. So I will leave it there. And I did just extend back to Greg, thanks for his time on the committee and you know, the discussions and information and perspectives that he brought. And so we wish him well. And I'm sorry that he is not going to be with us anymore. All right, public comment, cease. Nothing from you? Okay. All right, and hello, Christina.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you? I'm sure, did you catch the end of that?
I did. Greg is no longer on. Yep.
Yeah, okay. You've missed nothing now. All right, so
sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that. Yeah.
So we're gonna get rocking right in. Our new business for the evening is really just to do a little bit of update on some funding. So I wanted to just bring people up to speed on the local rapid response planning technical assistance grant that we were awarded through the state. I attended the webinar that they held last week. And I guess first off, I'll just say, like, I'm really excited because I think that this opportunity is really going to blend nicely with a lot of the things that we've been kind of talking about and work that we've been trying to move forward in this commission all around. And so I just think there's a lot of opportunity for us if we take advantage of it. And it really depends on kind of how that moves forward. Rosemary, have we been assigned a community facilitator yet? So I know that they said they were gonna.
I haven't heard anything, Kirby.
Yeah, it seems like they're trying to like do, and I'll say one nice thing about this that they did say, because I know, like, being in state government right now, everything that's rolling out is like has to end by the end of the fiscal year because of just the way that state procurement works. This project actually will be able to roll, it sounds like, into August and possibly September, which is nice because I think it gives a little more space for us to like really dig in and do some work on this. They are going to at some point email us with who are what they call as the community facilitator, their plan facilitators. There's 35 of them that have been assigned to the 125 communities that are awarded this. They're connecting with folks who have some expertise and background in your community type, size, etc. So I'm going to assume that we're going to get somebody that has some small rural expertise that will be kind of partnered with us. There's 3 phases to the way that the work is going to happen with this project. And I'm hoping that once we find out who the facilitator is, that we can schedule a time for our committee and the select board and whoever else would want to join to meet with that person, because they're really looking for a lot of baseline data and information to help them understand what kind of technical assistance to move forward with. So the first phase of the project is them really collecting a bunch of baseline data. And I know, Rosemary, they did send over the first kind of draft of these community surveys that they're going to be doing. So they're going to be surveying all of the businesses that are in our downtown district, both around COVID specific things, but also just kind of broader, what things work for you, where are you still having challenges? You know, I think to some of our conversations tonight and in past, zoning, marketing, you know, all of these different areas to really get a pulse from them on, you know, what they've tapped into, where they're still having challenges, et cetera. And so I guess the plan is that once we get this community facilitator, they'll be matched with us. They're supposed to have some sort of a kickoff meeting with us to walk through the downtown and kind of understand the area that they're working with. And then they're literally supposed to be going door to door to kind of introduce themselves to the folks in the business community, as well as utilizing the points of contact for their kind of community support around this to get those surveys out to folks so that we can collect some data and information. They're going to be using that to kind of help form some of the data that they need to move forward, but also based on our previous suggestions and the conversations we have with them in this first part is phase 2, where they're going to bring in technical assistance, subject matter experts in certain areas to drill down into the things that we had identified previously. And I'll just kind of rattle off some of those because they're not set in stone. This is all kind of flexible, I think, in these first couple of weeks of the project to talk with them. But in our application, we had talked about things like business directories, signage, wayfinding. We had talked about zoning and you know, what kinds of creative zoning could happen in our downtown district, as well as street kind of plans and walkability. All of those things were included, you know, in our initial application, but I think they're also going to be looking at the baseline data that they get from the businesses, and broadband, I think, was another one that we had put on there. But they're going to be looking at that baseline data and the conversations that they have with all of us to bring in those subject matter experts. And those subject matter experts, their job is really going to be to provide some really thorough next steps, things that could be low-hanging fruit for us to do to help tee us up for what is going to be a number of funding opportunities that are going to be opening up over the coming months. And so these subject matter experts understand kind of where the funding, both from COVID and from all of the different agencies, DHCD, Mass Development, all of these different agencies that have these streams of money that are kind of coming in to help tee us up to be ready to apply for some of those, and for us to get things like the signage that we've been talking about, Phil, possibly paid. So, you know, we may still move forward with doing our one sign as our pilot project, but this may help us expand on that and some of the future vision that we had around some of that. So I do think that there's going to be some great opportunity. I have a feeling that a lot of this is going to happen fast once things get rolling and kicked off with this. So I'm going to try and send emails as much as I can to keep people apprised and involved in this because I want everyone to be able to be present and have a voice. And I'll try and make sure that we've got as many folks at the table to kind of provide opinions across the important boards and committees that we have here in town. So, but we're kind of waiting just to hear, I guess, next steps from them, because they said in about a week or so they would get in touch with us with a community facilitator. So I will my mouth now. Does anyone have questions? It's very specific and ambiguous all at the same time. All right, great. So I'll just keep people in the loop around that and let you know when it's time for us to kind of help with the lifts around this. Great. Rosemary, do you want to give an update on the community one-stop for growth stuff?
Yeah, so we sent this out, at least I believe Kirby did. So it's called the Community One Stop for Growth Expression of Interest. So this is something that the Commonwealth has begun just this spring or winter. And it's a requirement for applying for a lot of grants. So for example, when Kirby talked about the LRRP, and if they make a recommendation for funding for signage, we would be required to have an expression of interest on file in order to be able to apply for funding from the Massachusetts Downtown Initiative, which is where the wayfinding money comes from. So if you look at this, there are probably somewhere, let's say 4, 3, 7, 10 different types of grants, which they're requiring this expression of interest be filled out. So a community can select up to 5 projects to include in this expression of interest. And so it's really the purpose of it is for the community to come together and express their objectives and goals as it relates to community development. So they would like to know, the Commonwealth would like to know what their communities are thinking about. Where are they putting the emphasis in community development? So they have warnings, so to speak. And if there's a lot of interest in a particular type of grant, maybe they'll shift some funding over to it. There are some brand new DHCD grant opportunities. There's a community planning grant, which is brand new, which would help us with our bylaw review process. And there is also a rural development fund, which would be another thing that we could qualify for. But some of the other grants are Mass Works. So this would be an infrastructure grant program. So we could apply for a Mass Works grant to continue to do sidewalks downtown, to extend water and sewer, to bring power into a redevelopment area, expand roads, redo intersections, whatever. Okay. And then they have a housing choice community capital grant. So this would be something that would be for housing, but let's say there was a housing, an affordable housing, I'm going to give an example, an affordable housing development at the DPW lot, for example. We might be able to apply for this community capital grant in order to again, pull water, sewer, all the infrastructure stuff, so that the developer wouldn't have to do it. Grant money would pay for that, and that would be an enticement for the developer to select Ashburnham to build this mixed use residential commercial project. There's also a bunch of mass development grants. They have a brand new underutilized property grant, the site readiness grant, and the brownfields grants. So for example, the grant that we got for technical assistance in the fall, we didn't have to fill out an expression of interest, but if we were going to apply in the future for another project, we would have to have this expression of interest on file. So what I'm asking for, this is due April 2nd. I'm not asking that, we get something done by April 2nd, but we need to put our thinking caps on. And we need your input on what types of projects would we be looking at, keeping in mind what the potential funding sources would be. And then we can cobble something together. They are talking about reopening this in the fall of 2021. So we're sort of prepping for that, getting these things out so that we can make a deadline in the fall of 2021.
So would it be helpful for us, Rosemary, to put this as kind of a standing item on our agenda for the next few meetings to continue conversation around this and thinking about some of those priority projects. And also too, I think with the work that's going to happen with the LRRP, gosh, I have such a hard time with those R's and P's. The TA opportunity there, I think hopefully will help identify some things that could be obtainable and shovel ready for us too. So thinking kind of about both of those.
Well, that and, you know, that's going to be
and
wrapping up in August.
Yep.
But mass development's
Yeah.
supposed to wrap up in June.
Great.
So we'll have at least two, and possibly even more because we have our community compact grants. I don't know when they're going to kick off. I don't know whether or not we've signed our agreements, but you know, we've got a lot of plate spinning where we're going to be gaining information. So very definitely, that's the jumping off point, right? But I think everybody looking at the material and seeing, you know, what the grant opportunities are, the questions that they're asking, and just contemplate, what do you think? I mean, what should we be looking at?
Do folks have questions around that? So what I will do is I will keep this on our agenda. I will continue to kind of ping us about this in our interim emails in between this. And then for our next meeting, we can kind of do a little bit more of a brainstorming session around this, if that sounds good and reasonable to folks. Does that sound like an okay next step?
Yep.
All right. Anything else from the funding world from your end of things, Rosemary?
Well, we did apply for a Affordable Housing Trust Committee Technical Assistance Grant at the beginning of the month. So this would be providing us with assistance as we start our Affordable Housing Trust Committee, identifying priorities, roles, missions, goals, that sort of thing. They're only selecting 2 communities, 14 communities applied. We were not selected, but they did offer to do some training for our Affordable Housing Trust Committee. So it wouldn't be to the level of the technical assistance grant, but so that's something that we'll be moving on as well. It can help down the line. But that's all we have right now. We did not get the Shared Streets and Spaces grant.
Any questions from folks around that? Right, without further ado, then I will move us on to our next item, which is the conversation about zoning. Thanks, Ron, for sending along some of your thoughts earlier today for people to think about and chew on. I am gonna just share the letter that I had sent out to everybody a few times, and I'm hoping folks had a little bit of time to think about this before we jumped in here today. First off, I just want to say, I know that we've had some discussion around this before and want to make sure that we're continuing to kind of capture the thoughts and ideas of the committee that have been raised previously, you know, around the green business district, also around the work that this committee has done in the past with both the signage and the blight bylaws, which are separate, but I think also tie into some of these conversations we're going to have tonight, and making sure that we capture that stuff. But I'm going to sit back and I would love to hear folks' thoughts or things that maybe they have brought in regards to kind of those 2 questions, areas that we're having difficulties or might need to be reviewed. So why don't we start there?
Sure.
So why don't we start there? So why don't we start there? So why don't we start there?
I would like to see the bylaws associated with the Green Business District reconciled somehow.
Mhm.
Clarified. Because we put a lot of work into that with really to no avail.
Right. And I think what I can do too around that, Phil, is all of that past language that we have and the stuff that we've pulled together, I can pull that together into the document that I'll send back to the bylaw review committee so that they've got all of the information and the discussions that we all had about that, both in our subcommittee meetings, at this meeting, and in our joint meeting with planning, to make sure that that's on the table, you know, for them to think about. And I'm sorry, my dog is barking in the background because I locked him out. So.
Right.
Other areas, I know, Ron, some of your stuff fell into this, I think, category around areas that are difficulties.
Right, there are a couple of areas, again, like I mentioned before, is the zoning bylaws talked about mobile trailer parks, but not specifically about individual mobile trailers that are placed within the town on just single lots. Whether they should be registered, not registered, how long they should be there. Does the lot need the minimum acreage? A lot of these trailers don't have facilities to capture things that they should. And water pollution, again, in the northern areas of town around the lakes is a critical item. We're all on wells. And if we contaminate any areas, that we'll never get water out here to rectify the situation. So again, that was one thing. But again, these zoning bylaws, if we change them, is this to be retroactively enforced, or is this going to be from the time they accept the new zoning bylaws forward? I'm not clear on that.
I'm not clear either, and I don't know. Can we ask Bill questions or can we not? 'Cause
I
he's
don't
here
know.
Listening.
You can ask, I can answer that. So unless there's like a piece of property, like for building, where it's a particular size and it's grandfathered, that, or like when we did the signage bylaw, we specifically grandfathered all the current signs in existence. So I think there's an option available. You could make it so that it impacts everybody. And once it gets approved by the Attorney General's office, then people would be expected to get in compliance with the new bylaw.
Thanks, Bill. And I guess also, Ron, to your point, in there, are we talking about more housing or trailers for business use that are storing things?
It is really an individual use for housing. It's really not businesses.
Okay.
And these trailers are not placed there while a residence is being built.
I mean, do you know, Richie? I mean, I sort of remember that you can't live in a trailer on a piece of property, right?
As far
Unless
as
you
I
had a fire,
understand with the
right?
zoning, I don't know with the zoning exactly, but I know a lot of people are trying to get around the zoning by putting a trailer down there and saying it's just storage. Then they use it and they don't use it. And that's why we're doing the bylaws again. Because there's so many loopholes through all the different areas. So there's really no way to uphold it without having zoning that will take care of it.
And I think too, to your point, Ron, is also this whole other conversation around affordable housing and affordable housing options and rentals for folks in the community. Like I like to think about why there's these problems popping up with this. If that's happening, is this a symptom of a larger problem around some of those areas? And so, if we're going to look at one, does it make sense for us to look at both? I put that out there in kind of a general statement of my
Right,
own
well,
thoughts.
Affordable housing could be one of the reasons. However, I think the main reason is they're just trying to put something out there actually to live in during the summer months while they're enjoying the beach or the water. And that's really what's happening.
And do they have porta potties?
They have had them in the past when we approached them because they had nothing. They did bring a porta potty in, yes. But in the fall and the winter, when they're there all day, there's no porta potties.
Other areas or thoughts around this, difficulties, challenges?
Kirby,
Yes.
just a thought. I think any major bylaw changes should be accompanied by an economic impact statement if possible. Particularly if there's not going to be any grandfathering.
Hmm.
To Ron's point, because it could have severe impact, financial impact on people that have committed to the prior bylaw, the bylaw requirement, and the new one may be fundamentally different that could potentially cost them a lot of money.
Right. That's why I didn't know whether anything was grandfathered. Now, in addition, where you've got the different categories of resident A, resident B, so on and so forth, I'm wondering, because in the residential A category, there are special permits allowed for residential A. However, again, in the categories that I'm thinking, some of these lots are like a third of an acre, very small, very tiny, not much access. But yet when they go for a special permit, let's say for the dog storage issue that we bumped into, there's nothing there and there's no restrictions on the size of the property for residential A. And I'm wondering if that should also be something we should look into. Because size does matter in some of these lots in town. They are small lots.
Yeah.
And so you're suggesting that we should have some sort of a look or maybe best practices around lot size and permittable uses of things that are currently listed in special permitting areas?
Right. I think there should be some restrictions based on the size of the land and like residential A or residential B. Because some, even though they're good businesses for the town, they just do not fit in and with the residential neighbors. There's not enough land there.
So just a quick question, Ron, when you're thinking about areas where there's just not a lot of land, are we talking about the smaller lakeside lots? Are we talking about the smaller lots that might be downtown or in South Ashburnham, which was a downtown business district?
Actually, my experience has been with the smaller sized lots around lakes.
Okay.
Although I could see how it could be applied to small lots downtown as well. Although downtown, of course, here again, you've got the facilities, the infrastructure downtown that we don't have out on the lakes, like the water, the sewer, stuff like that. That's why it's more critical in our neck of the woods.
I just got a more of a curiosity question as it relates to this topic. I know early on when I joined the committee, we had some issues with enforcement, and I just find it hard to believe that we don't have building codes in town that have minimum standard for what people can live in. Because I'm pretty sure that if I had a dorm that had no plumbing in it, somebody would be knocking at my door tomorrow, telling me I can't use that dorm any longer. So is it really a zoning bylaw issue, or is it falling back again on lack of enforcement?
I think that's a great question. Paul, anything get something that maybe we could paint across this, the broad suggestions in terms of, taking a look at what really is and trying to drill down further on if it is enforcement or if it is more actual bylaws and what can be enforced.
Yep. Paul, I think it's actually both. One of my questions has been, are these, let's say the Board of Health official or the town inspector, do they actually go out right around in the town and look at places to see if they see violations? Or do they stay in the town hall and wait for complaints to come in? Because there's a big difference there. And then if, in some of the cases in the zoning bylaw, even if a complaint came in, I don't know that they could point to any line in the zoning bylaw that would say it's permissible or not permissible.
I hear you, and I think it is a good question as to what do they do on a daily basis. But again, I would think there's some minimum standards that the town must have for what a residential housing needs to have as minimum standard. And one of those would be, I mean, we talked about, waste disposal. So I'm assuming we must need running water and waste disposal, et cetera, et cetera. We didn't plow one street, and I know I had the fire department up there telling me that we needed to plow, and rightly so. They were absolutely correct in that. So I do know they're out there. I guess the question is, are they going to the right places, and how often are they doing it?
Other thoughts around the areas that are difficulties, challenges? And I think what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm just keeping this kind of running list. We'll get everything kind of captured, and then I can summarize what I've got. And Bill, does it make more sense for us to send you like all of our thoughts with some prioritized things that we kind of hone in on? Or do you not need things prioritized? Is it okay to have kind of the free flow of just the thoughts and ideas?
Yeah, you don't have to prioritize anything.
Okay.
We're trying to gather, and obviously the reason I'm here tonight is we're trying to gather as much information as we can from as many resources as we can. We clearly, not only as a member of the Board of Selectmen, but now with bylaw review, it's a clear problem. And to partially answer Paul's question, a lot of this is code enforcement. And we have a new building commissioner, and I spent a couple of hours with her a few weeks ago talking about code enforcement, and that going forward is going to be a priority of hers. But I think in a lot of cases, particularly as it relates to the Board of Health, where we contracted out with Neshoba, I don't think they're spending a lot of time riding around looking to see what's what. I think they're waiting for complaints to come in, and then they will react to those complaints. And for me, that's somewhat problematic. If people, see things that are wrong, they need to step forward, and there's oftentimes reluctance for people to do that. They want to do it anonymously, or they don't want to, tick off a neighbor or something like that. And it's a tough call, but if somebody's not complaining about it, I know I spend a fair amount of time driving around, just looking to see what's going on. And I'm always making notes and why is this going on or why is that happening? And frankly, we need to do more of it. So, and let me just take 30 seconds if I could to explain how this bylaw review process is going to work. So the bylaw review committee is not rewriting bylaws. What we're doing is we're going through the process of, eventually we're going to look at all of them. Right now, we're actually going through the process of reorganizing the format of what they're going to look like. It'll be a dramatically different format that it's in right now. Everything that we do, we can't change a period or a paragraph or a comma without it going, in some cases, to a public hearing. And in all cases, it has to go before town meeting for votes.
Yeah.
So there are going to be plenty of opportunities along the way for people to participate either through the open meetings, through public hearings, and or in addition to town meeting. This is an 18-month progress or 18-month schedule that we're on. So our first goal is to get it reformatted, and we're gathering information, as I said, to look at these things. There'll be a couple that will come up at the annual town meeting in May because some work's been done on them prior to that. But we're going to make recommendations to the Board of Selectmen about areas that we think either need to be approved, bylaws need to be eliminated or changed or whatever it might be. And then some of them will go back to the respective committees that are responsible for them or other resources to rewrite or make changes in the bylaws and move forward from there.
Thanks. All right. Any other areas around challenges, difficulties? Okay, so I'm going to shift to the second space of bylaws that need to be added or removed completely. And I guess as I had thrown out in my email to folks in the beginning, I think one of the things that I think about, and also as my experience in coming to town and looking for property to have a business on, is that if there are areas that we are really looking to promote or to want to have growth in, having bylaws that support that, I think is important. We have a lot of overlay districts and a lot of special permitting processes that allow a whole lot of things. However, for me, if I hadn't loved my house quite so much that I had looked at, because there wasn't a clear path for me, even though I knew that our agricultural bylaws are out of date, which Bill, I will follow up with you on a whole other email around that. If I hadn't known that, it would have been tough for me to move forward because I knew that I wanted to farm on this land, and I would have to go through a special permit process to do that. And so like jumping through those hoops is a little bit of a gamble, and whether that's going to be approved or not approved. And so it just made me kind of think about the fact that, yes, although there's a lot of things that we can do via special permit, are there things in certain areas of town that we really would like to see growth and movement on? And if we do, are we being clear in our zoning that that is acceptable things that we'd like to see come in, so that when businesses are looking to try and site in places, there's an easy, clear path for them to get there. I don't know if other folks have thoughts in that vein, either supporting or not. I'm okay if folks say, Kirby, you're crazy, because I get a lot of that these days.
Just a comment with the Village Center District Overlay District, change of use. I mean, the whole idea that overlay district was you have existing structures downtown. If you had a business that came into a house that perhaps might have been a residential use before, now they want to use it as something else, the whole change of use process. I believe right now you go to the building inspector, and then the building inspector may deny the use or whatever, and then it has to get kicked to the planning board. Is that correct? No, I'm not sure.
Are you asking me, Christina?
Yeah, I'm just saying that the process, I mean, it's, can we find a way to streamline, if we really want to try to encourage more commercial or business use of downtown, is that process fairly easy to navigate, I guess?
Yeah, I don't know that it is, but it's certainly going to be a consideration. I mean, obviously, we're trying to make this clearer, more concise. And, back from my days on economic development, we always talked about trying to make it as easy as possible to do business in Ashburnham. And
Right.
we've fallen well short of that in a lot of areas. So if we can make some improvements on that, we're certainly going to try.
Sure.
The way I see it is the problem is with small buildings is the parking. You mean you want to open up one of these small areas to put a business in it, you don't have the parking for it under the requirements we have. Maybe we can change those to have a parking area for them or whatever it would be. But residential parking in most of these areas in the housing in downtown is only suited for the 4 parking spots they have.
Right. I agree.
You
The
know, I mean,
parking definitely needs to look at.
you can't put a diner in a business in a housing downtown that has parking for 6 parking spots.
Right.
It don't work. That's what we have to work on and try to figure out how to make those work.
Yeah.
But parking will be on the list. I can assure you of that. It's on my list, and we've been talking
It's been a
about it.
familiar topic, right?
Yeah, it's just, the requirements that you have right now, it's an impossibility. So you're having to get, again, special permits and, acts of Congress and things like that to put a business in that parking. So that's on the top of the list.
Yeah. I do think that's a really limiting factor, definitely.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to make a comment. One of the biggest trends for downtown districts is to eliminate all parking minimums in the commercial district.
Really?
So, I mean, hey, I don't know if that'd work in Ashburnham, but I'm just saying it's a problem everywhere, right?
I totally agree with minimizing the parking. I do, but you can't open a diner in a building that has 4 parking spots that needs 12.
Right.
Well, they eliminate
Where do you
all
put
the
where do you put the other 8 cars? So we have to have an area where those cars can go besides somebody else's parking.
They park on the street. So, I mean,
There
hey,
you
and I'm
go.
not saying,
I
but
like
that's
that.
what they do. That's what they do. They park on the street and they have to walk.
They park
And
at the
But we have
hardware
no
store.
parking on the street.
you're not parking in your hardware store, right? But
No,
anyway,
no. I'm
I
not
got
talking
it.
hardware store.
Yeah, no, I'm
I've been to
not-
other areas too,
Right.
and
No,
it's just difficult.
I get it. I mean, but the removal of the parking minimums does not necessarily mean the establishment of a parking lot, a public parking lot. What's happening in other communities is that they're assuming their people are going to park on the street and walk. So I don't know if
And I
that works
think
for
we-
Ashburnham, but I'm just
I
saying.
honestly
that's what's
think
happening.
Ashburnham should look at parking on the street, up and down Main and up and down 101. I really do.
Yeah.
There's so much parking there. Well, wait a minute. Let me just rephrase that. They already do it.
Right.
Okay. I'm sorry. There's no parking there, but they already do it.
Yeah.
So why can't we do that?
Because it's so narrow, Rich. It's
That's
dangerous.
right. There's no walkability. The problem is it's
No
not safe.
sidewalks. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no. And you have
We're
Route
right back to
12,
where I started. Right
No,
back
but
where
you-
I started. There's no parking.
but the hard thing is you have Route 12, which is a major road going right through the center of town too. It's not just like a little tiny side street. It's a major road that has to be dealt with. And if you're a pedestrian, it's crazy.
I think this also flows back into the, the conversations you've had about traffic flow and, sidewalks and the way that things need to be kind of reconfigured and redesigned. And, I think that's another piece of things for us to think about with this community one stop for growth and some of these other TA opportunities that are coming in about how can we leverage some of the work that they're doing,
Right.
for us to try and access some of these funds to help with some of these redesigns that could allow us to have more parking and on-street parking down in the downtown district.
Or certainly if it doesn't have to just be linear sidewalk beside the main road, maybe there's a way that other paths can be created for pedestrians to wind through an area. If the DPW is ever redeveloped, I mean, there's all kinds of potential there that could, drive people to walk through that space to get to other things too.
Yep.
Mm.
Other thoughts around this? I know we've talked a lot about mixed use in the downtown district. We've talked about, in terms of mixed use housing has definitely come up, I know, in this committee. So I'm just tossing those things out there, things we've talked about in the past, if folks feel compelled around those today.
Well, one of the things, and Richie can talk about this because this is something that was brought about in planning. But as an MBTA community, which we are, okay, because we're next to Westminster and Fitchburg, which have MBTA stops.
Mhm.
We're required to now allow dense housing. So this will be, we're going to have to look at bylaws for multifamily, duplexes, condos, townhouses, all of that. And, decide where we're going to put them. But this is a requirement that the state has now, and we have to comply as an MBTA community. Right, Richie? Am I like?
I totally agree. And I think we should be doing that in the water and sewer district because it helps the water and sewer. Because the more housing we can get there in the walk-in areas of downtown will be better for everybody.
Right.
Water, sewer, everything. It's all right here. We have it all, and it's just we're not using it.
And then I know we've had some discussion around some of the smaller pocket zoning in the past. I know, Rosemary, you've brought that up. It's something that also, I've thought about in terms of some of these weird, funky little lots that we have in the downtown district. So I think it kind of goes to what you were talking about, Ron, but in the opposite way, in the terms of in the downtown district, that's something that could make sense for those smaller lots to have utilization. Whether that's allowing a semi-permanent food truck to be there, or other types of kind of smaller businesses that may be able to be in those spaces that help kind of fill out the downtown businesses and allow utilization without having to do major renovations to areas and spaces that we can't build in.
Yeah, so an example would be if we didn't have parking minimums, okay, which we do, but if we didn't, in other communities, they do infill development. So it's not temporary, it's permanent. So for example, and I'm going to use Cushing's little tiny lot that they own on Main Street that's between two houses. Cushing could develop that as a commercial building lot and it's in the commercial district. And that would be allowable if we allowed infill development. Another example would be next to John Moulton's house, where he has his modular construction business. There is a lot right there, a tiny little lot. You would be able to build right there. So that they currently they're not conforming, right? I don't think you can build, but you would allow it to be built in the Village Center commercial district. Now, I don't know if that, I'm just giving you examples of things other communities do that I see when I attend webinars and conferences and stuff like that to promote more economic development. Like, for example, where the ice cream shop used to be before it was knocked down? Technically, you can't put anything there, but we would allow you to be able to put it there. So remember we had the bagel person?
Mm-hmm.
She couldn't put anything in that lot because of the parking issues, and she couldn't get the parking in there. They couldn't turn around. It was too small, too tight. And
Right.
she walked away. But if we had allowed that, not going for a variance, not requiring a special permit, maybe she would have gone forward with it. And again, I don't know if it's right or wrong. I'm just saying, you know, it's something bylaw review needs to look at.
Yeah, I think there are areas that are worth exploring, for sure.
I really appreciate you folks giving me more work to do.
Hey, you're not on economic development anymore, Bill. You gotta step it up here.
Christine, are you saying I'm not carrying my own weight here or what?
We missed the 3-hour meetings, Bill. Come on, come on.
I'm just gonna throw one thing out there that worked out for everybody on our end of the hardware store, the restaurant down below, and the bank. We did share parking for the 3 of us and the shared driveway, the whole 9 yards, and it works out pretty good.
Yeah.
In a shared driveway, it's a shared parking area. They could park in the bank area. They could park in the hardware store area. So when the restaurant's booming at night, we're closed and they fill us up. We just need 4 spots till we close. I mean, it worked for us. So yes, shared parking can work, but we can't do it over everybody else. You have to make it work for the groups that you want to work for. That's the whole thing. I mean, the bank worked with us, we work with them, and we get along great. And the business works. We're open. We're all open.
Yay.
So, but you can't have 4 businesses running at the same time and needing 30 parking spots and only have 15. It has to flow with the bank closed, I'm closed, the restaurant's open, that type of thing. So it has to be, it's tough. I mean, if you take the restaurant closing and you open up that to be a gas station, it's going to be a mess. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You have to be careful.
Yep. Other thoughts on bylaws that folks have?
Just in terms of accessory dwelling units, I mean, I'm sure, they're going to be looking at that as well, but that seems to be an area that probably needs to be updated.
I would agree there 100%.
And the other one I would throw in is the accessory commercial.
Commercial, right. That was my next words out of my mouth, Rosemary.
Yeah.
Especially I think too, where, we have to be realistic that we are a little bit of a bedroom community. And I think as now we're seeing more of this shift of work from home and smaller home businesses, are we being helpful, open, and proactive to bringing that type of support to the community? Where folks are coming here because they want to be part of our school districts. They want to be part of the community. How can we support that? And, the accessory commercial spaces, I think is a space that we could do that. And then the accessory dwelling units for me is just this whole idea of how do we support our community, cradle to grave, and allow folks the ability to modify their homes so that they're able to live in them, whether that means having younger family move into the main part of their home so that then they're able to move into, an in-law apartment, those kinds of things. Where we're a smaller rural community, we don't have, a big senior housing unit that everyone gets to go move into. And so how are we being creative around supporting folks so that they can stay here and continue to pay taxes and be part of our community and our economics? Other thoughts around the zoning pieces? All right. And then I guess, Bill, is it all right if we have things that dribble up after the fact for you guys in the next month or so? Like if at our next meeting, someone comes and says, oh, I saw, I heard. Is it okay for us to follow up via email with additional things?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no real timeline on this. Like I said, we're probably going to be going at this for 18 months anyway. And it's going to be an ongoing process. So
Right.
we welcome any information at any time.
Great.
Great.
So what I will do for our committee is I'll just kind of keep this in our old business spot, just to do a quick check-in every meeting. If there's anything that folks want to, bring up in addition to this to move forward. But I think we have a pretty hearty list this evening that covers both older topics and newer topics. So
Yeah, and folks, don't be afraid to just shoot me an email directly either. It doesn't have to come through the committee per se. If you've got something that pops into your head that you'd like us to take a look at, then by all means shoot me an email and we'll put it on the list.
Cool.
thanks, Bill. You guys have your work cut out for you.
If nobody else has anything for me, then I'm gonna go eat dinner.
You go eat
So,
dinner.
Bye, Bill.
We're gonna roll quick through the rest of our updates and hopefully be out soon too. So thank you.
Great. All right, thanks, folks.
Thanks, Bill.
All right. So Phil, do you want to give a quick update on signage stuff? I know you've had some movement on that.
Yeah, we had movement. I talked to Richard Roy, the fellow that lives at the corner of 101 and 119. And he's amenable to putting a sign there as long as it's maintained. One of the issues he brought up is the property is considered a wetland. So I don't know how that would be handled with respect to putting a sign in, whether a permit would be needed. So I'll put that in the document that I'm going to put together. I have just about everything I need to put it together and send it out. My big question is, what format do you want it in and who do I send it to?
I think you can just share it here, and then I would assume we would share that with you, Rosemary, for the select board to consider, because this would basically be a recommendation from all of us. My only question around this next kind of piece on where the sign could go would be, do you want us to do more of the legwork on what we need to, what kind of agreements we might need to have in place around the sign if it was going to go onto someone's property? Or does it make sense for us to just kind of pitch this to the select board now that we've got all the solid information with the places that we still have some little holes of next steps to even see whether it's amenable or worth us going through those pieces?
Yeah, I would, oh, go ahead, Cease.
Yeah.
Since it's a wetlands, you may have to run it by the Concom.
Yeah.
I personally wouldn't do anything other than sending your, talking about it, take a vote from economic development to say you recommend it. Then bring it to the Board of Selectmen, and then they'll decide from there. We're still in a budget freeze.
Yeah.
And this is a pretty big expenditure. Our excise tax all rolled in yesterday. I haven't heard how it went, but that was a key indicator on whether or not the budget freeze was going to be lifted or not. But right
There
now,
is someone in the waiting room, so I'm going to admit them just to see, and let's see who this is.
Kirby, do you want to unshare the screen?
Yep. Thanks, Phil. I forgot that I even had that still up.
No, I do that all the time.
That way we can see all of our faces better again.
So the other question I have is, what is the process? Let's say economic development approves the proposal, and then it goes to the board, and then what happens to it? Let's say the board approves it, then what happens? Is there a town buyer or? who
no.
coordinates?
Well, the town could do it. It would just be someone in town hall. There's not a specific buyer, but the town would likely, work off that invoice, but you first have to get through the TA and the Board of Selectmen. Right now, like I said, we're in a budget freeze. So it's a little hard sell when we have other committees that can't expend any money whatsoever. and we're going out and buying a $14,000 sign. I mean, that's the reality of it right now. So unless the budget freeze, pulls, is removed, but we're also working on the budget right now for next year. So it's good for us to get this information in front of the board and the TA prior to finalizing the budget, which is, town meeting's May 4th. So we need to do it as soon as we can.
I'll have it in this week. I'll have the document. I didn't want to go and put our document together and then that make it too confusing. I want to do it professionally and make it easy to read.
Yeah. So if you want to pull that together, Phil, then maybe we could take a vote on that at our next, or do we want to we can't really vote on something that we don't have in front of us. So, and that way we could do a vote on that at our next meeting. And I don't know why my face went away. That way we could put it to a vote next time and have that to all of the select board, just to let them know of our interest in kind of moving forward this project in the future, whether that is with town funds at some point or grant funds that maybe might become apparent to us through this new process that we're going through.
Wasn't there funding allocated to economic development?
There
is, but it's all frozen right now.
I mean, they released the $300 and something for the ad. But this is a big expense and you're running out of that cash too. Don't forget, of the remaining 75,000, 50,000 of it is allocated for a planner.
Yeah, it's basically the amount of the sign is what would be left after we kind of take out all of the
other stuff.
Earmarked expenses.
Right.
All right.
So it is something we would have to consider.
Ron, you had asked the question if there was any economic incentive in volume.
Right.
The answer from Blake Lyman and Wass Arthur was no.
Darn. The one question I have, Phil, and maybe for Rosemary, does this sign have to be on town property rather than personal property? And if it is Mr. Roy's land, does he have to give us a sliver of that property so we won't run into legal problems later?
I have no idea. I mean, that's something that, we can just present the information.
Right.
And then, the TA can run with it. They'll get in touch with town council if we have to, or anything like that. I mean, it's pretty unrealistic to think that it's going to be on town property, but it might be that you can put it within so many feet of the center line of the road, because we still have the ability to, we have control over that as a town. It's why you can put in a sidewalk. It's why you can widen a road. So many feet off the center line, we have a right of way.
Yeah, I don't know if we can run with this in parallel with Phil's work to run it by the TA and the town council, just so we're not stopped short later on in the process, just to make sure we get that answer right up front.
Well, I think you can't wait. I don't think you can wait till the next meeting, because you're backing into a May 4th and it's already March 16th. So if you wait until next month's meeting, you're too late.
No, I say let's get it done.
I say let's get it done, but I also say let's work in parallel.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's the whole point, Ron, of us getting that document there so that we can get those questions answered sooner rather than later.
What's the question again?
Question is, does the sign need to be placed on town land or town right of way? Or is it okay to put it on Mr. Roy's property?
And now who would answer that?
Town council.
Steve Nims could tell you what we own off the road.
Right.
And if we own off the road, we could put it there.
Okay, that might be one answer, yeah, but I'd go to the
So I
town
guess
council
for
as
me,
well.
Phil, if we could just put in the document, a question, basically, I would, if we can list everything that we know, all the solid stuff we know, and then a spot where we still have some unknowns, and in there, if we could just list a question around, how we would go about, placing a sign on possible private property, with landowner permission. And if we could just frame that in a question to kind of go in around this, and also the fact that we've talked to the DPW, I think we've got enough information to pull this together and have a few questions to be able to present and follow up on that stuff. But I don't want to get too deep into this because we've talked this over. It feels like a lot.
Well, one thing I would suggest is taking a vote tonight to present it to the board, okay? Because again, of the time constraint.
Yep.
And let's say that it's something that you want to, or Brian might say, well, we're going to go to town meeting and see if we can take the money out of free cash and not economic development.
Yeah.
We need time to do that as well.
Right.
So.
I would entertain a motion if someone
I'll
wants
make
to.
a motion.
I'd second it.
So we're gonna make a motion to put together the proposal to submit to the select board with our intent around wayfinding signage to point into Ashburnham.
Right.
All right. Any further discussion about this?
Just a comment that we have the Powder House sign on private property, I think, Ron. That sign is, but again, it's on the side of the road. I don't know if it's within that 16-foot border or whatever, but there is a right of way there, but I believe that is on private property. So, anyway,
So you have a precedent.
maybe, I don't know.
Well, I don't know how true this is, but my neighbor says he pays taxes on that property.
Well, he probably does, but there's a right of way for people to walk in to see that powder house.
Oh, I went by it today. We're not doing it. But anyway.
All right. Any other discussion around this? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great. Thank you, Phil, for all of your hard work on this. And we'll get that put together and into the select board.
Okay.
Super. All right, I'm gonna roll right into committee updates then from folks. Ron, do you want to kick us off with an advisory?
Let's see, we're just looking forward to next year's budget. And I'll tell you, it won't be any less stringent than this year. It's going to be a tight year next year. So don't look for, a lot of free cash, if that's the right term.
Mhm.
Not flush. We're not throwing it away, right, Ron?
No, we're not throwing it away, but it's going to be tight.
It
'cause,
is, yeah.
A lot of people are not working still. So let's see what happens with the excise taxes.
Mhm.
Marijuana review. Have you guys had any meetings since the last time we met?
I couldn't make the last meeting due to the time on it. The last two have been at 5 o'clock, and that's not something I can do reliably, but they're gonna move them forward, so. Paul, did you make that meeting?
Same for me. 5 o'clock on a work day just doesn't work. And we tried to convey that, but they didn't move it. But I'm glad to hear that they're going to move them going forward.
Yeah.
But the meeting was with Eddie's Flowers. And again, we didn't attend.
Yeah, okay, great. Richie, what's up with you guys at planning? Any updates for us?
Nothing big, nothing big. Roger hasn't been in the last two meetings and we're just trying to get restructured for the next round.
Anything from historical, Christina?
Not really, no, just kind of floating along. No.
Rosemary, Select Board and Rail Trail?
Rail Trail's just waiting for notification of whether or not we got the feasibility study. So that's not until June. Board of Selectmen, we're really been focused. We've had 2 working sessions going line by line over on the budget. The last meeting we had on Thursday, the department heads were there. So we were able to talk to them. But no, that's really, I can't even remember what we talked about last night. Cease might know.
Cushing, anything from you, Paul, on the Cushing front?
I don't know if I reported last month, but the new dorm is done. We have a certificate of occupancy. It actually has 2 names. One side is Hancock, the other side is Carlisle. For those of you that don't know, it actually was constructed to either be all boys or all girls, or 1/2 boys, 1/2 girls. Faculty apartments in the middle of the 2 buildings, so it is kind of like the line of demarcation there, and can't go through there. And we don't anticipate, we're using it now for quarantine space and repopulation space. Probably won't be populated until either the summer session. We're hoping for an on-campus summer session, which would bring about 250 kids to town, or for the academic year 2022. We are budgeting right now about 360 kids for academic year 22. That would be down about 40 kids. The offshoot from COVID, and we just hope to be able to do better than that. But we want to be a little bit conservative on that front. I did send Mary the community impact statement for Cushing for the annual report. Pretty much follows the same structure as in previous years. So I think a lot of good information there from a community impact standpoint. And that's about it. Kids are going home on Friday for a short 12-day spring break. And then we'll repopulate on the 1st and 2nd of April. That's it.
Thanks, Paul.
Yep.
All right. Any other business from folks?
I just had a question for Paul.
Mm.
Paul, somebody asked me the other day if there was any place he could go to find out what kind of contributions that Cushing makes to the town on an annual basis. Is there something on your website, or?
It's in the town's annual report.
The town's annual report?
Yep.
Okay.
And I know that's coming out soon for this year. I also submitted one for us that was just an update to Ron's wonderful one that he had put together last year, just talking about our general work moving forward for Mary. So I'll send that around via email for folks as well, because she needed that. Right, and I'm going to share my screen with the minutes.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Phil, and I believe we also include the community impact statement on our website as well.
Okay, thanks, Paul.
But if it's not there, it's definitely in the annual report.
Okay.
Yeah, it was.
All right, so I have the minutes up from last time. I had sent these around as well. Could I entertain a motion to accept these?
So
And then we
moved.
can-
Seconded.
All right. Any changes, things that need to be adjusted?
Look good to me.
Okay, I should be hired as clerk. No.
Yeah.
All right, hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Me.
All right, so our next meeting is scheduled for April 20th. Mary already got me the Zoom set up, so we are good to go. So I will get that posted probably tomorrow or the day after. For us, we'll continue on with this. I'll keep folks updated as the local rapid recovery planning process continues and let you know where help can be helped with that, along with anything else. And Phil, I'll look for that document from you and we'll get that over to the select board for their review as well.
Yeah, I'll plan to have it done by Friday.
Great. I appreciate all the work everyone has put in, and thank you so much for coming prepared to talk about the bylaw stuff tonight.
And you too, Kirby. I know you're doing a lot.
Right.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And we're a few minutes over tonight, but we had a lot of stuff on our agenda. So enjoy your evenings, and I will see you in a month.
Hey,
Okay,
Kirby?
see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Kirby,
Thanks.
can I give you a call for about 2 minutes?
Yes.
Okay.